As a younger woman, I took sewing to a professional level when I worked as a seamstress on a number of film sets and television productions in Vancouver. Hello, I'm Kathleen Cheetham. I'm a pattern maker, a designer, an author, and an online teacher. And one of the things I like to do is to take a pattern and see what else I can make out of it. Today, what I'd like to share with you is how to take a classic blouse pattern and make it more casual by adding a back yoke and a back pleat. Let me show you the blouses that we're talking about here. This is the classic blouse. It's called the shapely blouse, and it comes from my book Perfect Plus. Very easy pattern. It has darts through the front, simple neckline with a choice of a couple collars, and a little cap sleeve. There's another choice for a sleeve as well. In the back, we have a shoulder dart. And we're going to take this shoulder dart and change it to a yoke. Here's what the blouse will look like. Notice it's the same silhouette, has a little different collar, which is also in the pattern, the same capped sleeve. When we turn it around, take a look at how it's changed. So now we have a yoke and this nice little inverted pleat that's given it a little bit more wearing ease and design ease. So for this exercise, we'll use just the front and the back pattern pieces. That's all you're going to need to use. And starting with the front, what I've done is, first I've straightened the side seam, and I've gone ahead and done that already. Also, I'm going to eliminate the torso dart. So just cross that out and go ahead and have that extra ease. You just won't sew that dart in. I'll put this front pattern piece aside because we won't need it anymore. Let's work on the back now. Here we have the back. First thing I'm going to do is straighten the side seam. So I lay my ruler on the underarm point and I just position it until I get to the hip. And this is really just a matter of letting your eye decide for you where you want. But make sure that you finish off at the same point on your back as you did your front. Transfer any notches over that are there, like that. Then we're going to eliminate the torso dart. We won't be sewing that in. And now for the yoke. I'm going to turn the pattern around a little. And what I want to do is lay a square or a grid ruler right on the pattern piece, and I want these lines here to line up to the straight of grain. And I'm going to slide the ruler until it comes up to the end of the dart. So we'll just slide that right up there. That looks nice and straight, and a line will be drawn across. The next thing I want to do is to add a notch. And this will be used later for matching up the pieces, because what's going to happen now is I'm going to separate the yoke from the lower back. And we're just going to cut that right off, follow the line, and we have the two pieces, just like that. So here is our yoke and here is our lower back. I'm going to put the yoke aside just for a moment, and I'm going to create this inverted pleat. This is the easiest thing in the world to do. Just lay your ruler on your center back line, and I did this pleat by adding 3/4 of an inch onto the center back fold line. There it is there. And we're going to extend the hem. Now what you want to do is make sure that it is perfectly square. And I do that again by using the grid lines on this ruler. And now the line that indicates that this is cut on fold, we'll just extend that because that's where it's going to go. Why don't we do it nicely with a ruler? That's where the fold line will be, this line here just indicates that it's center back. That's it. And we will have a notch right here. There will be a notch there. Now what's left to do with this lower back section is just add the seam allowance back on. And so for the seam allowance, whatever is the seam allowance in the pattern that you're using, add the same amount back here so that it's consistent and you won't be making any mistakes. Grid ruler comes in handy. In this case, my seam allowance for this pattern is 3/8 of an inch, and that is 1 centimeter. So we'll add that on, extend the lines, and this little curly part here where you have a bit of a curve, an easy way to get the correct kind of shaping on this curve is to fold your paper back like that, get your scissors, and just cut a little bit of that arm's-eye. And that will give you the exact shaping that you need for this section. I'll just cut that off so you can see it. And it just has a little bit of a kink outwards, and that will fit nicely again. So the lower section is complete. We're going to work on the yoke, the main event. Here's how you do a yoke, and it is so easy, you'll love it. We're going to place a little piece of tape right at the bottom of this existing dart. That's just for reinforcement. I'm going to cut one leg all the way down to the edge, and I'm just going to leave a little tiny hinge of paper there. Then I'm going to close this dart, and watch what happens. You just get this nice little curve along the bottom, and we'll just close it all the way. We're going to hold it in place with a couple pattern weights, and I'll secure it with tape. And that's the yoke. All we need now is the seam allowance. There we go. We'll add the seam allowance on. We'll secure it first with tape. Don't you love tape? Okay, same seam allowance as we had before, 3/8 of an inch. And we'll add that on. And there it is. More lines connecting. And remember how I folded the other seam back? We'll do that same thing again, just to get the shaping nice. Fold that back, trim into the armhole, and we have the shaping very nice here. The other thing that's needed is a notch. We have a notch on the lower back section, which actually we need to extend. And we're going to do the same thing on the back yoke. This will guarantee that when we sew this together, we know exactly where we're going to connect each piece. So they're going to fit like that. Well, I'll cut it first and you can see. Now, one of the things that I don't like here is that we have a point. And this is not going to fit as nicely when it's pointy. So we'll take a French curve and we will smooth this out. And I'll just use a different color so you can see what happens. It's really quite subtle, but it makes all the difference when you're sewing. So this line will be like this. curved slightly there. And that's the yoke. Let's cut it so that you can see how that bottom section looks. Here's that curve. And the armhole is here. The last thing we need to do is add a center back fold line, and we'll label these for their pieces. The yoke will be labeled yoke cut 2 on fold, and the lower section will be cut 1 on fold, and this pleat will be tucked in underneath the center back line when you connect to the yoke. That's how you take a classic blouse and make